Hey guys, welcome to UFC Betting Edge, and today we'll be talking about the main card of UFC 255, which is headlined by Davison Figueredo and Alex Perez. This is going to be an exciting card. This has a lot of good fights in the prelims as well. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So the first fight we're going to analyze is Brandon Royval versus Brandon Moreno. Now, this is probably the fight that I am most excited about, and if I had to put my money on fight of the night, I think this is going to be it. So Brandon Royval will have a huge size advantage over pretty much any flyweight coming in around 5 feet 9, and he's coming off of 2 upset finishes in his UFC career so far against Tim Elliott and Kai Kara-France, who are among the top 10 in the flyweight division. He came back from adversity in both the fights, so that was very impressive. Royval is a wild man who takes a lot of chances in a fight. He is very long for flyweights, and that gives him an extra edge, both with striking, but especially with his jiu-jitsu game. He has good scrambling ability, but that also means that he does not really believe in controlling positions, as he goes for one submission after another. He throws a lot of volume standing up and mixes his hands with great front knees, and due to his height, they are going to be extremely useful against anyone in the flyweight division. Now let's talk about Moreno. He's shown great improvements in his game in his last few fights. His ground game has been pretty high level since his first stint, but since he came back in the UFC in his second stint, his striking has looked really good, especially in the Kai Kara-France fight and the Jussier Formiga fight. He's got really nice jab, got good low kicks. He throws fast combinations and finishes them with a front leg high kick, which worked really well against Kai Kara-France. Moreno has really good cardio, and you can see how he grows stronger as the fight goes on. He puts his head in front of his body and uses it as a bait to counter strike. And as his opponents start punching, he would slip the punches and throw his strikes, and he's getting really good at it. His technical jiu-jitsu is at a really high level, and that you can probably see that in the fight against Formiga, and Formiga is probably the best ground artist in the game, and he held his own in that fight. So now summarizing this is going to be a fascinating fight between 2 upcoming contenders. The winner of this fight might fight the winner of Figueredo and Perez for the flyweight title. Both these fighters like to take risks and have good stand-up and really good ground game, so this matches them up really well. Moreno has definitely has had more experience than Royval, but what Royval has shown is that he's ready for top competition, and he just didn't defeat them, he finished them. I feel that Royval will not have the same kind of grappling advantage against Moreno, because his ground game is pretty good as well. I can definitely see Royval utilizing his reach, his devastating front knee, his spinning attacks to hurt Moreno. This is going to be a close fight, and I can't be confident in either one. However, Moreno might be able to catch Royval on the floor in the transitions, where he can sometimes be a little careless. I personally won't bet on this one, but I think Moreno will take this. Now, if we look at the odds here, I put Moreno as -140 favorite, whereas the betting odds make him at -188, and that makes Brandon Royval a little more, brings in a little more value. So I'll see how the betting odds move, and if Moreno becomes a bigger favorite, I'll be inclined to bet on Royval on this one, even though I think Moreno is going to get this one. So the next one is the first fight on the main card between Shogun and Paul Craig. Shogun has been one of my favorite fighters since 2008, 2007, and it's kind of sad to do these breakdowns for him. But anyways, let's hop onto it. So Shogun is coming in after a split decision win against Lil Nog, but he didn't really look too impressive in that fight. And after he had a draw with Paul Craig, which I think Shogun won 29-28 pretty easily based on positional control. Now, Shogun was badly outstruck in the first round of his fight against Paul Craig and absorbed more than 15 strikes, like a barrage of strikes, next to the cage. He came back by taking Craig down, where Craig didn't really fight a smart fight after the first round. Shogun utilized inside leg kicks against Lil Nog, and I think he needs to do the same against Paul Craig. Paul Craig will be in orthodox stance, so his low kicks will be low calf kicks for Paul Craig, and that can make his mobility go lower. Now, talking about Paul Craig has won his last fight through a triangle choke against Gazimurad Antigulov, even though it might be fair to say that Antigulov didn't really fight a smart fight, and he kind of ignored Craig's setups so he could land his punches and paid the ultimate price. Prior to that fight, in his fight with Shogun, Craig dominated the striking exchanges, which I didn't think would happen. He threw a lot of straight shots, utilized his reach, and also utilized a lot of body kicks to sap Shogun's stamina. Craig does his best work on the ground and surprisingly from bottom, especially when his opponents are tired. He sneaks in his submissions and gets it done. So, just to summarize how this fight will go, it's one of those fights where, I find it hard to be objective considering Shogun is my favorite fighter. And I've seen him to be a shadow of himself and not evolve pretty much in the last 5-6 years. So Paul Craig, on the other hand, knows now that he can hurt Shogun, and if he fights smart, this is Craig's fight to lose. I'm not sure about his fight IQ, as he's quick to accept bottom position, and something that's ingrained in his game, and he doesn't really think about it. This is muscle memory that makes him go. That's the way I feel. That part, that taking or accepting the bottom position might work against other light heavyweights who do not have the same experience as Shogun does, but I don't think that he will be able to submit Shogun until he's really hurt him. Shogun, on the other hand, would like to take Craig down in case the standing exchanges do not go his way. This time I see a better takedown defense from Paul Craig, learning from his previous mistakes. I see Paul Craig being the smarter fighter and getting this by TKO or decision. However, when I look at the odds, Paul Craig is coming in at -175, but I'll only peg him -140, maybe -150, considering the fact that Shogun was hurt in the last fight and he still managed to come back and possibly win this. So I won't be putting him any bigger favorite than that. So also plus 400 by TKO for Mauricio could be a good bet. It's a very risky bet. I won't go for it, but it's something. If you like Shogun, if you think he might bring in some old magic, you can put that money, but yeah, not the fight to bet for me. Okay, so the next fight on the cards is Katlyn Chookagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. So let's start with Chookagian. She's definitely going to have a lot of height and reach advantage. She's won a lot of decisions, so I'm not really concerned about her cardio in this fight. It's a 3-rounder, even though Chookagian is taking this up on a short notice. Chookagian throws a bunch of submissions off her back, and unless Calvillo has her back, it might not be as easy for Calvillo as she's had with other opponents on the ground. Chookagian throws really good strikes and maintains her distance for the most part, even though Andrade was able to engage her in clinch, take her down a couple of times, and before she ended up hurting her with a body shot. Chookagian is also susceptible to leg kicks, and Calvillo will be targeting that, just as Jojo Calderwood did in their fight. Chookagian has an active guard, and she can be problematic for any flyweight if Chookagian's in full guard, if they are in Chookagian's full guard. So Cynthia will like to pass the guard as soon as possible. Calvillo, on the other side, is probably slightly undersized for flyweight, and that could impact the grappling transitions. However, her takedown attempts and their timing is really good, and that could be seen in the Jessica Eye fight, where she took a bunch. She was able to take Jessica Eye a bunch of times, and Jessica Eye has fairly good takedown defense. Calvillo baits her opponents to throw a big shot, and when they do that, she goes for her shot then. There'll probably be a slight edge for Calvillo on the ground, but please don't sleep on Chookagian's ground game. It's pretty good. It's just that whether she will be able to be on the top position, that's the big question. Calvillo has a much improved stand-up, but it'll be hard for her to go past Chookagian's range unless she utilizes a lot of movement. But that's also going to be a little tough because Chookagian moves a lot and she's always on her bike. Cynthia did show some signs of slowing down in the 4th round in a fight against Jessica Eye, but in the 5th round her cardio was back up. So I think cardio-wise, Calvillo is going to be okay. I also think Calvillo has a high fight IQ and is very aware in the fight, and that was in full display in her flyweight debut against Jessica Eye. Now, to summarize this, I think it's going to be an extremely competitive fight where both fighters have specific areas where they'd like to keep the fights. Chookagian would like to be mobile and attack Calvillo as she tries to close the distance. She will try to avoid clinch exchanges. That increases chances for Calvillo to take it to the ground. On the other hand, Calvillo will try to keep Chookagian on the back foot and mix takedowns with strike. And once she gets the takedown, she would like to transition into half guard and progress from there for a more controlling position or even get submissions. Now, an important point here, based on the historical fights, is that if Chookagian's opponent take them down more than twice in a fight, they end up winning. And Calvillo does not require a lot of takedowns. She retains position. She doesn't lose her positions, and that makes me think that Calvillo is the favorite to win this via a close decision. However, when I look at the odds, you can see my odds and the odds from Bet365, and they're not in close proximity. I think people are discounting Chookagian after a loss with Andrade, and even though this stylistic matchup favors Calvillo, these are not the numbers that I am very comfortable with. I might be interested in going for Chookagian by decision at plus 300. These are really good odds. There's a lot of value in there, even though I think Calvillo is going to win by decision, but I think there is some value here and might go if the odds get even steeper for Chookagian. So the next one is also a barn burner. This is in the welterweight division between Mike Perry and Tim Means. Let's talk about Perry first. Perry throws a lot of power strikes, and his power stays with him throughout the fight. He doesn't cut a lot of weight, so that probably helps him to retain his energy levels in all these grueling fights that he has. He comes on fast and hard and would ideally like to catch Tim Means early. He's got big power in his right hand, and if he catches Means clean, it won't be a good night for Means. Perry utilized takedowns to control Mickey Gall in his last fight, and that was somewhat of a surprise because I thought he'd like to keep it standing up where he can hit Mickey Gall. Now, Perry has been doing some cardio and he trained with Yoel Romero prior to this fight, so I'm expecting a high level Perry that might look to utilize more wrestling in this fight. Perry has a hell of a chin and probably one of the best in the businesses, and before Jeff Neal knocked him out, I didn't think that I'd ever see Mike Perry get knocked out. Perry puts a lot of pressure on the front foot, so he's susceptible to leg kicks from Means. Luque landed a bunch of them, and he somewhat slowed the movement of Mike Perry. Perry needs to be extremely careful from the knees that come from the middle from Tim Means. They are Tim Means' specialty, and Perry needs to be really careful about them. Now coming to talk about Tim Means. Tim Means is coming off a really good decision win over young and streaking welterweight Laureano Staropoli after getting knocked out by UFC debutant, or then debutant, Daniel Rodriguez. Means is taking this as a short notice fight, replacing Robbie Lawler, and this might be the X factor in this fight. Means fights in the southpaw stance and throws a lot of unorthodox strikes. Means might not have the cardio edge that he usually has, especially because he is coming off just of a 2-week notice, but he trains at Albuquerque at 7,000 feet above the sea level. So I think his cardio will still hold. Means chances of faring better in this fight if he utilizes takedowns. Means off late has started fighting a more smarter fight, especially the last fight. And it might be hard though for him to get Perry down, as Perry's takedown defense is pretty good. Sometimes Tim Means keeps his head stationary in the pocket, and with Perry's power, that might not be the best idea. So something to look at. This is going to be a fun fight, and as neither of the two fighters back down and they keep coming forward, I give the striking technique advantage to Means, and he has a more polished striking. He can get away from strikes pretty well, whereas I will give the power advantage to Perry, and by a long way. It will be important for Means to ensure that he has high output while keeping this fight technical, throwing a lot of jabs and front kicks to maintain his distance. During the heat of the fight, Tim Means gets sucked in and doesn't really utilize his physical advantages, so he needs to stay away from that. Mike Perry, on the other hand, would like to trap Means next to the cage and throw some fast hooks at him to hurt him. I think with Perry's strength and recent wrestling training, he might have a little bit of edge and a clear path to victory if he can get Tim Means down and control him there. I think this is going to be a fairly close fight, and it'd be tough to pick a winner. I probably won't bet on this fight, considering the fact that there is a fair bit of uncertainty. But if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Perry due to his power advantage and Means coming in short notice. If you look at the odds, my odds and the betting odds are pretty close. The only difference I see is that they give a higher chance of Perry to finish the fight. So I think my pick might just be this fight going to the distance that can give you plus money. It's a risky bet, but that might just be the way I would go about betting for this one. So the next fight is between Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia for the co-main event for the flyweight title. But I won't waste our time discussing that fight, considering the fact that Valentina is coming in at minus 1600, huge favorite. The bookies have priced us out, so you could probably use it at one of the parlays. I don't see Valentina losing this fight, even though anything can happen in an MMA fight. I don't see her losing. She has advantages over distance, even in clinch, on the ground. The only place where it can slightly be competitive in a boxing range, but Valentina is still smart enough to not engage in that battle, and she can win the fight standing up, on the ground, on the clinch, anywhere. So let's not waste time and head to the main event, which is between Davison Figueredo and Alex Perez for the flyweight title. Now, Figueredo is coming off of knocking Benavidez twice, and the last time to win the flyweight title, and his confidence is sky high. His power and accuracy is pretty astonishing at the flyweight division. Figueredo has quick striking, and he throws them from a fair distance, especially when he starts fighting. He relies on single powerful strikes rather than combinations. And who's to blame him? He's getting all the wins. He has a record of 19-1, I think. He likes to stalk and back up his opponents. And even though he has low punch count, his accuracy and power lead to the highest knockdown rate in the flyweight division. He has well-rounded skills, and his ground game, both from top and bottom. He attacks his opponents when they try to take a Figueredo down, and he attacks them with a power guillotine choke, and he has been successful with it against Tim Elliott. So Perez needs to be really careful to utilize his wrestling, because Davison's choke is no joke. Figueredo has shown tendency to slow down, even though he manages his energy really well. He takes breaks, and this is probably one of the areas where Perez can outwork Figueredo. Now, talking about Perez is a high volume striker, and he looks to overwhelm his opponent with volume. He has strong low calf kicks from orthodox stance, and he'd look to utilize them to take some of the power away from Figueredo. He has to be extremely careful while utilizing those kicks, and he has to set them up because Figueredo will get that left hand quick to his face if he's not very careful. Perez mixes his takedowns with striking and has superior wrestling, at least on paper. Figueredo does have tendency to concede takedowns early, so this is probably what Perez might be looking for, not just to take Figueredo down, but build some lactic acid in his arms and take that snap away from Figueredo. Perez has really good anaconda Darce choke, and he's used to finish at least 2 or 3 fights in the UFC. He might utilize them against Figueredo if he gets tired or gets hurt. Perez did show some hesitancy in pushing forward after getting hit by Benavidez in the first round, and from there on, Benavidez took control of the fight and finished Perez. So that kind of gives me an idea that Perez might not take Figueredo's punches that well. So to conclude, this is probably one of the tougher matchups from Figueredo in the current bantamweight setting. Perez has probably superior wrestling, and he could utilize that to get takedowns and get Figueredo's arms tired. Perez might have a slight edge in cardio as well, but Figueredo knows how to manage his power, and just the threat of his power is sometimes good enough to back up his opponents. Make no mistake though, Figueredo is super dangerous at all times, even when he is tired, and not just with his knockout power, but with his submission game, with guillotines and rear naked chokes. He allows the fight to play out, and he wouldn't go for takedowns himself as often. But if his opponent tries to take him there, he's happy to oblige, especially if they are hurt. If Perez is stuck on the ground, Figueredo's ground and pound could be a big threat too. I think Figueredo's power might be a bit too much for Perez over the 5 rounds, and he will be able to finish Perez before the championship rounds. Looking at the odds, I am pretty much in line with what the odd makers are saying, but I see some definite value in Figueredo by finish, and I've already placed my bet on that one, and this is probably my most confident bet. Figueredo by finish. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe and share, and comment, then I'll be happy to have the discussion with you. So until next Thursday, see ya, enjoy the fights.